So we talking this month about the essay that I wrote for this month is on feminist Satanism. And as you probably know, theology, including Satanism, is not my main area of expertise. I would prefer philosophy, language of philosophy, and existential philosophy in particular, and psychoanalysis and maybe scientific language to talk about uh, everything. But because this month is about theology, I had to write about something theological, or religious. When I normally mention religion, I mention it as subject of criticism, something I'm critical about it, and it's normally side topic for me. But because this month is dedicated to theology, and because whenever I was asked if I believe in God, I would reply that no, but I believe in Satan, and it's only partially a joke. So this in this essay for this month, I was trying to elaborate how do I believe in Satan, but not in God. And also, if negative psychoanalysis would be religion or religious practice or just negative practice that I'm trying to develop, if it would be theology or religion, it would be feminist Satanism, not even negative or apophatic theology, because in my view, they just pretend to be negative and or maybe not negative enough. And it's also a relevant question whether theology as such can be negative because it presupposes transcendental dimensions. So it's problematic, but nonetheless, if there is religion for me, this is my religion. I'm feminist Satanist. And so what does it mean that I don't believe in God but believe in Satan? This quote from a verse from Alexander Pope that I think I was going at least to use in my book, but I never mention it in this essay. But this is something that Daniel Dennett demonstrates when he uses this verse when he talks about evolution, trying to overthrow teleological perspective. And this is quite a good verse to show how theological and teleological perspective, religious Christian perspective works, which is our everyday, more or less, common sense. If there is anything negative, anything destructive, we associate it with evil, and we immediately introduce bigger picture in relation to these bad things, bad destructive things. We would say that this is, if you take from the perspective, more general perspective, there is just God's plan, divine plan that is unfolding, and those negative things are just parts in it. Like, for example, Satan is just testing you, but it's all God's plan. It's all this positive perspective is going to end up well. And this is what I am more or less against, this perspective, because what God embodies and the God that I don't believe in, it symbolizes generative power, is the ultimate positive idea. It symbolizes generative power, creative power. It embodies certain transcendental dimension, certain beyond. And whatever is represented by Satan is the opposite, is destructive power. And we tend to see those destructive powers as deviations from powers of creation, from the positive principle that God embodies. And this is what Alexander Pope is trying to show. And in Christianity, what Satan represents, the destructive or evil, is just secondary. And it offers Christian perspective. So Christian perspective is this one, whereas this dark hell somewhere underneath and certain transcendental realm of creation of everything positive. And it offers the theological perspective that this picture represents. The poor fish supposed to follow certain paths of positive paths that will lead it to transcendence and to God, from Satan, from hell to heaven. And this dimension, the dark dimension, is seen as something we need to overcome or something unnecessary. It's just the stage to this dimension, the divine dimension of everything good and maybe heaven. So the devil here is just secondary in this perspective, and something subject to overcome. But for me, next slide, this is my religion, right? There is no good, there is no beyond, there is no transcendental God, it's just devil and hell, and nothing beyond it. So this is the how I would demonstrate or show my way of religion. There is just hell as the destruction as the center. Generation might be, but it's just illusionary and a byproduct, and just darkness and devil. Sabina Spielrein is great person for me, and in general in this context, and I'm mentioning her in this essay because she's the psychoanalyst who I write elsewhere in different papers. But I think she was Satanist because when that's the person who introduces the concept of the death drive, my favorite concept, into psychoanalysis, which Freud later would just turn it into corrupted version of the death drive. What's Sabina Spielrein and why she's valuable to me, because she puts destruction in her later paper of 1912, her paper Destruction as the Cause of Coming into Being. What she does in this paper, and this is the context where concept of the death drive originates, she overthrows this perspective with creation at the center and places destruction at the center. And generation for her, or creation for her, is just something that originates out of destruction, but it's this destruction that is not secondary, that is not subject to overcome. It is central. It is, you can say, all that is there. And in her diary, before elaborating her paper, she would call it demonic force. So that's why she's Satanist. And if this is demonic force, then the destructive power, destruction she's talking about, is about devil. It might be just a matter of speech, but nonetheless. So this demonic force, and another important thing for me that she equates, this is for her the essence of love. The essence of love, because love for her is destructive force. And she here in this example, she would talk, and in her paper she would concentrate on romantic love and sexuality, but that just because she's talking with Freud within the context of psychoanalysis. Sexuality is, unlike for Freud, is not central for her. So it's not the essence of, for her central is love, destructive love. Sexuality would be just one of the, and romantic love would be just one of the examples, embodiments of the destructive power, out of which generation originates, but it's still essentially destruction. So, as an example of romantic love, it is power of destruction, for example, because in this example, because it destroys individuals who participate in it. It's the self-destructive act through which you touch maybe universal destruction, that is ontological one that is going on there. You disappear in love, so in this way it's destructive, but at the same time, by disappearing, you kind of join this universal expanding destruction. And elsewhere in my paper on Spielrein and in my presentation on Spielrein, I was claiming that her subject, the subject that she presupposes, was this destruction as at the center, and love as something destructive. The subject that she's talking about is really different from the subject of Freud and common sense subject, and subject in, as it's seen in science, those someone who we see as a neutral subject, or in scientific worldview. When we talk about subject, this is the subject that we pretending to be neutral. This is a Freud subject. So subject that is autonomous, separated from other. Egoistic, utilitarian subject that wants to enjoy something or has certain desires and is directed for to satisfy this desire, and is driven by this by this principle, egoistic principle. It's possessive. It wants to possess, and it's alive, and it's kind of unfolding its omnipotence through being alive, something like that. So it's the neutral subject of psychoanalysis, that it just pretends to be neutral, and subject of science and subject of common sense. But subject that Sabina Spielrein is talking about, it's a subject rather death-driven. It's the one with the destruction at the center, driven by destruction, self-destruction. Is loving, is not so egoistic. It's caring, self-sacrificing, dying in terms of sacrificing oneself, and in a process of self-destruction, not becoming more possessive and possessive, more omnipotent. So it's the opposite subject. And for me, Spielrein wouldn't talk about it. But for me, Spielrein's subject is rather a woman, someone who she claims she presents as neutral subject. It's the woman. And Freud, well, Freud was criticized by feminist philosophers for being, not only Freud, but everyone, for being phallocentric. And it's true. He subject which he presupposes is subject that is derives from his body, from, because there is no other body for Freud to think about. So it's, and in general, neutral subject in philosophy is man. So this is the satanic subject for me, subject as such. And even better than calling this subject a mother, I would call this satanic subject or demonic subject. Even better than calling it a woman, or claiming is that this is at least sought out of the body or through the body of the woman. I would rather claim that this subject is mother, more than woman, because this motherly love for me is even better embodiment of the destructive love that Spielrein is talking about. Because mother, as Spielrein would talk about motherhood, and she has this image, mythological image of the dark mother sea, primordial dark water of the sea mother. And this is the ultimate, maybe, representation of destructive powers. Since all the differentiations disappear, it's destructive in relation to all differentiation that disappear in this dark maternal waters. Mother is a great symbol. Someone who the symbol of the mother is better, represents for me the devilish, self-destructive act, because nonetheless mothers are normally seen as a symbol of creation and reproduction and all the good things. I would say that it's the destructive subject, and even though there is a creation, a child, it's I would rather say that seen from Spielrein's perspective, where destruction is at the center and mother is creative. So her creative powers would be just in a context of the larger, bigger picture of expanding self-destruction, and child is the result, the creation is the result of the expansion of self-destruction, something like that. And this is love that at the same time kills and at the same time cares. So this mother, dark mother sea, is the space where we of interconnection and all of those things. It reminds me of Bracha Ettinger's matrixal space, the space associated with womb or something. And it's also obviously space that psychoanalysis would talk about, the those space of connection with the mother, that psychoanalysis stigmatizes and pathologizes as primitive, as something subject to overcome, associated with eternal bliss, and uses it, all of those concepts, just to present it as something secondary, subject to overcome. In teleological perspective that psychoanalysis, conventional psychoanalysis, imposes. For me, it's rather the hell and space of not eternal bliss, but rather eternal suffering, that we can join through love of whatever. So this dark dimension, archaic dimension from which we originate, but in psychoanalysis, conventional psychoanalysis, it would only be mentioned as something to overcome. Like it would establish the transcendental dimension in relation to this dimension, and all the women psychoanalysts would at least partially claim that you cannot overcome it. It's not challenge this idea of transcendence of this dimension of this dimension. So for Lacan, for example, or for Kristeva, who partially agrees with Lacan and partially, in my opinion, goes beyond Lacan. But at least Kristeva would call this dimension semiotic dimension, and she would also give preference to symbolic dimension, similar to Lacan, but at least, and this is how she's flirting with conventional psychoanalysis, Lacanian psychoanalysis, still stigmatizing mother and still seen as something primitive and something you have to separate from, or you at least this idea that you're able to separate from it, something superior, like symbolic dimension. But at least Kristeva would claim that you cannot fully overcome it because the semiotic, this dark space, is going to be at the heart of any symbolic. There's no space beyond. It's still within this dimension. So that would be the difference. And also, I'm mentioning Kristeva's concept of women time, and that she develops because it resembles this symbol of a dark sea, dark mother sea. Kristeva would talk about cyclical, monumental time, and that is traditionally linked to female subjectivity. So it's women's time, mother time, time of repetition, and time that in certain civilization was the only time they knew, or the mystical time. And the time as we know it, is this one the linear time or historical time? So this is the time of teleology, the time where moving from A to B, a time of any project, time of history, time as we know it and as we think of, as when we think about time. But Kristeva claims that there is women time. It's more profound, cyclical time, primordial. And for her, this dimension, the primordial time, time of repetition, in relation that she associates with women, in relation to the linear time, this primordial time, the linear time is just a part of, you can never go anywhere beyond or reach any point because it's just a part of this more primordial time, time of repetition. And another person that is important to me is Mary Daly. I'm mentioning her. She's a theologist, feminist theologist, and she's partially problematic because she still associates, for example, feminine with creation, or she resembles sometimes this new spirituality with oriented towards happiness, because I think it was her mistake to move from Ireland to America, and this is where it went wrong. But she's also have problematic relationship to trans people. But nonetheless, there is something important in her feminist critique of conventional Christianity, because she notices it how it's based on male-centered perspective. It's all about this doctrine. For her, it's legitimization of male impotence, and what Christianity is about, and that Christianity that excludes woman, the body of the woman. It's because it's all about elevation. It's all about ascent to the divine dimension. And it's about male fantasy of fulfillment, of eternal fulfillment, which and fantasy of omnipotence, which this perspective have a picture for you. This perspective that this one it represents Christianity and any religious doctrine, because it more or less because it presupposes a certain path. Uh, it's directional. It's in this way manipulative. It presupposes that going from here to somewhere above. And the dimension that she is talking about, the dimension that is woman oriented, it's not about going above, uh, because it's more about she's developing concepts of unfolding and belonging. So it's rather spiral, might be represented by a spiral. So it's not transcending anywhere. So it's different subject. It's different comprehension of the subject. Subject thought through a body of the woman, uh, and it's different comprehension of everything else too, ontology including, mediated through body of a woman. And this perspective is what I would call Satanist perspective, perspective of Satanism, where there is no divine realm, there is no divine dimension, there is just dimension of hell and spiraling in hell without any possibility of transcendence. And it's not directional perspective that there is someone with knowledge directing one somewhere. It just rather there is nowhere to go anyway. And the conclusion from this paper is that there is only hell, and there is only, we can say, the spiral of hell. There is only love that we give to each other to sustain each other, but at the same time, it's love that destroys. And it's rather open wound in everything than some kind of eternal bliss. And this darkness and death that are unfolding, and we are all in it together, suffering, supporting each other, but also destroying each other through support. And that's it. There is nowhere to go from out here. And there is the picture of a fishy. All right, so that's it for me. I will stop recording in a second and ask you if you want to ask questions.